live?
We're going.
We filming?
We're good.
Great. Hey everybody, it's Coach Robbie from Athletes Unleashed, and we are going to talk about the kettlebell swing. This is going to be a nice tune-up for you to improve your swing. You might hear Coach Brett. He's next door right now warming up another class, so just ignore him. Focus on what I'm saying. Hey, come on over this way. This is what we're going to cover today. We're going to go over the hinge, some performance points there, the kettlebell deadlift, then the kettlebell deadlift and float, the pendulum, and the hard style dynamic swing. Cut. Good?
We're good.
You feeling me getting my bearings?
Go.
Okay, so let's talk about the hinge. Step one is the hinge. This is a great, I don't know what the hell I'm trying to say other than I want you to focus on the hinge. When there's a hinge, you must remember there is minimal to zero ankle flexion, moderate knee flexion, but very dynamic hip flexion. So to tune up your hinge, if you feel you need to tune up your hinge, grab a piece of PVC pipe, do the 3 points of contact drill. I want you to establish a point of contact in your lumbar spine, establish a point of contact in your thoracic spine, and establish a point of contact with the back of the brain housing group right there. So that'll keep your cervical spine neutral. I guess I should switch my hands a little bit so you can see what's going on. And now practice your hinge, maintaining those 3 points of contact. And while I do this, you see that my spine is staying completely neutral. I have dynamic hip flexion, I have moderate knee flexion, and little to no ankle flexion. Coach K, what else?
How can they tell when they're deep enough into that hip hinge?
It's a great question. Your question is, how deep should they go in the hinge? Is that your question?
That's my question.
I want them to hinge over as deeply as they can without breaking at the lumbar or thoracic spine. So in other words, if they have fairly loose hamstrings, I've got pretty flexible hamstrings, hell, I can come over just about until I'm parallel without breaking. If I had very tight hamstrings and I tried that, and I stopped here, and to get myself further down, I started to flex my lumbar spine and see I'm losing that third point of contact, that's your showstopper.
Good to
Does
go.
that answer your question?
Answers the question.
Bam! Good. You going?
We're going.
We're going. I don't need this anymore. So we are going to talk about the kettlebell deadlift. The reason we're going to practice the kettlebell deadlift, it's a great way to remember that the knee flexion and hip flexion and extension is a vertical movement, not a horizontal movement. Although when we start swinging that kettlebell, like you mentioned, Coach K, the kettlebell itself isn't a horizontal movement, but our body travels in a vertical plane. So I'll show you what I'm talking about from the front and from the rear. Is that making sense, Coach K, what I'm saying?
That makes sense. It'll make more sense when you show it.
So I'm going to hinge back. I still can't touch my kettlebell. I bend my knees until I can touch the kettlebell. I make sure my spine is neutral. Notice I'm not looking ahead. Cervical spine stays neutral, and I am going to vertically extend. I'll show you from the side. You'll notice I'm still hinging. Just like I showed you with that PVC pipe, we're going to hinge. I still can't touch the kettlebell. Bend the knees. So by practicing this motion, I want you to practice this motion so you can tune up your body's ability to extend and flex your knees and hips in a vertical fashion rather than a horizontal fashion. What else are we missing?
Looks good to me.
Good.
All right.
Good to go? Are we taping?
We're good.
I think we need to put more in there.
No.
About,
No.
yes.
Nobody's going to watch a 10-minute video. This is good.
All right.
Go.
Kettlebell deadlift and float. We're going to do the kettlebell deadlift and float in order to tune up our ability to dynamically flex and extend the knees and the hips in that vertical plane without hyperextending. I'll show you from the front and from the back, and I'll show you the hyperextension that I don't want. So first, a couple of good reps on a kettlebell deadlift and float. I'll show you from the side. I want you to take note of my knees. I am really extending the knees. I'm slamming those knees open into full extension to promote the hips extending powerfully. And I'm going to squeeze my glutes hard at the top to finish this movement. This is the same movement that we're going to use to propel that belt. Good?
Good to go. All right, we got to talk about the hyperextension as well.
Correct. So the reason we're using this in a tune-up on the extension and flexion of the knee and hip is to get you out of the habit or prevent that from even occurring of excessively leaning back and hyperextending the lumbar spine. Is that what you're talking about?
That's what I'm talking about.
Anything to add?
Yeah, show us 3 more, and then we can watch how when you come to the top of that kettlebell deadlift and float, your shoulders are stacked directly above your hips.
Roger.
Boom, right there. No movement in the spine. Directly upright.
As opposed to finishing in that fashion. Awesome.
Excellent. We're ready.
Ask me again.
We're ready.
I'm ready.
Are you ready?
Let's go. All right, we're going to talk about the pendulum. The reason we're going to have you do the kettlebell pendulum, it's a great way to tune up the dynamic extension of the knees and the hips. And it's the knees and the hip, the knee and hip extension that's providing the propulsion to the bell. It's got to be very explosive. So you're going to start in your starting position just as you've been taught. You're going to simply do you're going to get that bell moving by basically deadlifting the bell up from this front position and just let it swing a couple times. This is a great way to practice initiating the hinge. So I'm pushing my hips back. My timing is such that I'm trying not to push the hips back until the forearms are making contact with the thighs or hips, and I dynamically send those hips back. This is the pendulum. Now what I want you to do is every 3 or 4 swings, pop! Really dynamically extend your hips and your knees. Boom! It's a great way to practice that rapid, violent extension of the knees and hips, which provides the momentum for the kettlebell swing. What else?
Good to go? We're filming.
Okay, good to go. So I tucked my shirt into my waistband so that you can better see what my hips are going to do and the extension that I maintain in my spine. I promise I will untuck the shirt when I'm done swinging the bell. There are a couple of performance points that I want you to try to identify while I'm swinging this bell. 1, I'm going to maintain tripod foot, 3 points of contact. The heel and the ball of the foot on both the inside and the outside. We'll always stay in contact with the ground. We'll have 0 to minimum ankle flexion and extension. We'll have moderate knee flexion and extension, but we'll have very dynamic hip flexion and extension. You'll see that my spine maintains neutral, just like when we were practicing with the hinge during the tune-up sessions. Lastly, I want you to take note that my torso and my arms, or the bell, is going to descend at a separate time at a different rate of speed. So you'll see my arm travels down rapidly, and my hips don't start to initiate the flexion until the fleshy part of my forearm makes contact or begins making contact with my hips or thighs. Only then do I hinge over powerfully, then dynamically extend everything to bring the bell up into another swing. Question on that? Am I missing anything, Coach K?
No, so you're saying that there's a delay between when the arms are dropping down, coming between the legs, and when you're hip hinging back or your chest is coming down?
That's correct. Bell first, then the hinge.
Good to go.
That's what makes this a dynamic, hard style swing. Okay. Here we go. I'll do a couple from the front. Are you going to pan or do you need me to move?
I'll pan.
You're going to pan. Roger. first common mistake we want to talk about and how to correct it is the scoop. I'll show you what the scoop looks like from the side. The scoop is bad. What's happening there? You are flexing your knees you're flexing your ankles instead of extending your knees and hips. So the correction for that is to focus on ensuring you're initiating your hinge with a powerful drive back of the hips, and then initiating the extension by flexing the quads and the glutes to snap your knees open rather than flexing the ankles to lift the hips. Is that clear, Coach Kelly? Is there something you want to add to that?
No, that's good.
Good?
To go. Yeah.
Awesome.
Correction
Good.
2. Good.
Correction 2, the one-speed swing. I'll do it from the side or from the front. And I'm sure as I'm doing this, you can tell me what's wrong with it. When I say you can tell me, I mean the person watching this video. My chest and the bell is moving at the same speed. My God, that's just painful doing with a 12 kg bell. This is horribly slow. There's nothing dynamic about it. This is wrong. The correction with the fault is you've got frozen shoulders. Your shoulders and chest are frozen together. They're moving at the same time instead of allowing that bell to come down and then hinging. So the correction for that is relax those shoulders. Relax the arms. Make sure they're relaxed and let the bell fall. And when you feel the meaty portion of your forearm strike your thigh, that is when you can initiate your dynamic hinge. Anything else on that?
Looks good.
Correction 3. What are we doing? Correction 3?
Hyperextension.
Hyperextension. So hyperextension is the third fault we find very often with swinging kettlebells. It is simply a result of not dynamically extending the knees and hips. You don't have that good crisp snap to the extension at the top of the hinge. I'll show you what it looks like. It's that late glute engagement. The reason there's a temptation to do that is you really didn't fire your hamstrings and your glutes. You really didn't drive or snap those knees open and the hips open, so the bell didn't go anywhere. So in an effort to get height, you just crazy lean back and crunch your lower back. So the fix for that is snapping the hamstrings and the glutes, really getting a dynamic hinge extension. And that's exactly the way the kettlebell is supposed to be swung anyway. A kettlebell doesn't do you any good if it's swung softly. It must be a dynamic, violent hip extension. What else?
Good to go. Just keeping those shoulders right over the hips.
Jet.
They're
I am
rolling.
ready.
Roll.
Fantastic. Hey, thank you very much for watching this kettlebell swing tune-up video. Keep practicing your hinge, your kettlebell deadlift and float, your pendulum, and the swing. Keep those shoulders over the hips at the top of your extension, and things will only get better. So I appreciate your time watching. Out here.